Give it up for Todd.
Thank you. When Pete first asked me to do a presentation on Appstore strategies, I said, why? Why me? And then I thought about it, and I guess I have been in a lot of these app stores. I've taken apps and put them in all the ones up there, and so I can speak a little bit about them, and I could certainly share a lot of the strategies and tips that I've learned along the way over the last 3 years. But before I get ahead, a little bit about me. I've been programming since the age of 10 with a TRS-80, a Trash 80, writing games and submitting them via cassette tape to C-Load magazine. That's how I got my start. That's how I got hooked. Happy to say it's a lot easier to publish now via this thing called the internet and all these great app stores. So a lot has changed. I knew back then I wanted to do computer science. I ended up actually with an internship at the CIA. That's what brought me to this area. But at the end of the day, I like to be able to talk about what I do. And I've moved on to tech startups. If you ever heard of WhiteNoise, that's a startup I worked 15 years on building that product. Managed to have a few patents, all related to network security. But in 2008, I decided to do something a little more creative and started publishing apps. And it just so happened I got lucky, I guess, and 2 of my apps were in the top 15 paid downloads. That's my claim to fame, WhiteNoise and CardCounter. I've also had Jimmy Fallon make fun of my app on a show, so that was quite amusing. Didn't drive any downloads, by the way, for some reason. And recently, like Pete said, I just published a book. So this is the app we all want to make. This is the app we all wish we made. And a lot of people don't realize that Rovio has been in this game quite a while. They've been making games for 10 years. It's not like they just came out and made Angry Birds and got lucky. They've been working really hard to get where they are right now. And it does take a lot of time and it takes a lot of work. So that's where we all want to be, but where are we at? This is an infograph I like. It's the developer lottery, I call. The most important thing is 80% of all developers don't make enough to support a business by themselves. So that's a pretty, and a lot of people say that number's higher, and that's a tough stat. 59% say they don't make enough revenue to even break even on their app, on the development costs. Some say that's a lot higher. Let's see, there's some other good ones here. What I find interesting is 52% of developers put aside $0 for marketing, despite 91% believing marketing is necessary for success. Now we look on that's all the red side. That's how what developers are really doing with their apps. On this side, this is the successful developers. They're spending $30,000 a year on marketing. They're spending 14% of their time on marketing compared to 5% those that are trying to market their unsuccessful apps. 11% had 500,000 or more downloads. So I guess what you can take from this is it's not that easy. It's hard to be an independent developer, and I think everyone in this room would agree with that. I certainly would. Fortunately, I have been fortunate enough to have a successful app to kind of run a small little company. But I do spend a lot of money on marketing, and I do a lot on marketing, and you have to do both. You have to have not only a good app, but you have to get discovered. So that infograph, I think, is pretty recent. June 4th, Ars Technica, if you want to look that up. Software is cheap. It is now, thanks to Apple. I'm always amazed at how much functionality you can buy for 99 cents or get for free. They kind of changed the model. Remember when software you could charge 50, 100 bucks? I think those days are over. And given that free apps are so popular, and you think about this, you know, the top paid, I think it all started with the top paid in the App Store, because the top paid is not based on revenue, which it should have been. It's based on sales, total downloads. So obviously that's going to favor 99 cents. So right away we're getting to that model of music where things are 99 cents, but they don't allow you to download music for free. They allow you to download apps for free. So really you have to decide, are you going to sell a cheap app or are you going to sell a free app? They tried to address this issue by adding a top grossing list in iTunes 9. Have you ever looked at that? What's at the top of that list? And top grossing is based on revenue, right? Free apps. They're all free apps. So this whole model of charging a lot of money for an app just doesn't really work. Not with this. And then we look at Instagram. They were bought for $1 billion. How many users did they have?
26 million.
I think it was around 30 million. So that equals what? Because they have no revenue, zero. They're paying, so they're basically saying users are worth $33 a head, right? If I do the math right. That's interesting. Would you rather have $33 a head or 99 cents? It's something to think about. And I think the tip to take from that is you should plan your features around the ranking systems of the App Store. You have to take that into account. So making money, this was actually an old slide I did a couple years ago, and I recently updated today. Well, you know what got me into it, writing apps, and I was never a Mac guy, I was always PC. But I read this blog about Eliza Block, and she wrote this app, this crossword puzzle called Two Across. And she started writing about it, how she was making $2 grand a day. And that was way back in August of 2008. And when I read that blog, I was like, wow. The next day I went out and bought a Mac and I wrote my first iPhone app a week later. And that's kind of what got me in. And there's been all kinds of great independent stories. Trism made $250,000 in 2 months. iShoot, if you remember that, was a huge blockbuster for a couple months. He made $600,000 in a single month. Great game. It's like Scorched Earth, one of my favorites. And then, of course, Angry Birds Space, 10 million downloads in 3 days. But then we look at the free apps, the landscape there. There's so many more ways that you can make money with free apps. You know, you can do in-app purchase, you can do advertising. And you look at Temple Run, which originally started out as a paid app. Local developers, good people, Amanji Studios is the name. And so this has been their biggest hit to date, Temple Run. They've had over 50 million downloads on iOS. Unfortunately, they released as a paid version first, and then they switched it to free. So they don't have advertising in there, but what they have is a lot of in-app purchase and a lot of social capabilities. And that pushed them to the #1 grossing app alone. Just imagine if they would have started with advertising in the app. They did the freemium model with Android right away. They got 10 million downloads in a short amount of time. So I think there's a lot to be said for the freemium model. I think going forward, at least my opinion, that's kind of where I'm going to focus on is the freemium model. Because at the end of the day, you want users. You want as many users as possible. You can figure out how to monetize that later. You know, but there's just so many different ways through referral programs, through advertising, through you don't even need revenue. Look at Instagram. So if you're looking to sell your company, I mean, just having users has a value to it, obviously. If you are going to use advertising, I always recommend you use an aggregator, because not all your ad agencies can give you good ads all of the time, and all the ads fluctuate in as far as price, what you're getting paid per click. So use an aggregator. I used to recommend AdWorld. That was my favorite, but AdMob bought them, killed them, and now they have their own solution called AdMob Mediation. I guess I'm recommending that now, or MoPub. Those seem to be two really good aggregators. But never release with just one ad vendor. You want to be able to control that dynamically. This is how I view the App Store. It's a big ocean. And just like the stock market, your applications have a lot of technical barriers. In the stock market, well, maybe not with the Facebook stock, but there are a lot of things that keep a stock within its range, right? There's a lot of barriers, and there's really a lot of those barriers in the App Store. And it's all created from the interface the App Store has. If you go to the top 25 apps and scroll all the way down, you're going to notice that you have to tap one more time to get the next 25, and you have to keep doing that. Whereas on an Android, it's just smooth scrolling. So you don't have those rough barriers like you do with iTunes. So it's really, really difficult. And I know because I've had my app in all of these, starting with the overall 25, 50, to the individual categories. To get your app over that wave, over that hump, is very difficult. To go from the number 26 health app to the number 25 is extremely difficult. You have to give it a push. And once you're in there, that's the great part. It's like WhiteNoise, my app, has been a top 25 health app for 3 years. And when I see it started to float back to 25, I get really nervous, because if it pops over that, it may be off to, the lost sea, as I call it. And I've had a lot of apps do really well. I've had music apps that were top 25 music apps that I didn't pay enough attention to, and they floated out to sea. I've had games do that. We all probably have our apps that have floated out to sea. And you want to get those back somehow. But that's the way I view the App Store, and I think it's interesting because there are these technical barriers. And the biggest one being number 51 to 50. If you ever are fortunate enough to get your app over that hump, that is difficult. And I had to spend a lot of money to do it. So we're going to talk about stores, and I kind of made this chart. I hope it's accurate. If it's not, just tell me. Starting with the cost to join these various stores, $99 a year for iTunes. BlackBerry used to be $200 for 10 apps. It is now free. They're desperate. They want you in their store. Android is a bargain, $25 for life. The Amazon App Store is free for the first year. So that's nice. You can try them out and see if you like what downloads you're getting. And then after that, it'll be $99. The Windows Marketplace is $99. Palm Pre, I'm not too sure. It used to be $50. Standardized on 70% to the developer, 30% taken per transaction. Some pay via PayPal, some pay through a bank transfer. BlackBerry used to be 80%. They've since reduced it to 70% since they went and added a bunch of new countries. Returns, the Android market allows you to return apps in 24 hours. I believe the Amazon store does too. What I really like about the Amazon store is they let you test drive your app. Have you all played with that? Have you tried that? Any app you put in the Amazon store, as long as it's Java-based, at least I think, I wouldn't know how they would do a native, but you can actually they might, but you can actually test drive it through your browser. So that's a great feature, and it works great. You can hear the sound, you can see the animations and the graphics, and I don't know how they pulled it off, but it's a really cool feature. So now that should help with returns, because now people can try out your app in the browser, and if they want it, they can buy it and send it to their phone. As far as languages, it's usually a mix between C, C++, Java, JavaScript. Of course, iTunes is Objective-C, but they also support C++ as well. Of course, all their user interfaces, APIs are all Objective-C, so you can't get rid of that. Let's talk a little bit about the bad stores. These are the stores that I'm in that I wish I never was. They make it extremely difficult for developers to, one, make money, and two, support their product. Now, the Palm Pre store, the app catalog, it's actually a nice store, and I love the phone. It's a great phone. It's a real shame when big companies buy you out and then kill you a month later. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. It's kind of sad because it was a great device. And honestly, the store interface was fine too. But at the end of the day, you have to make a living. And that store is not going to do it for you. The Ovi store is an absolute nightmare when it comes to supporting their devices. And the fact that they pretty much gave up and have decided to go with a Windows Phone with the Lumia, which is a great device. is very telling, and it pains me because I love their Qt library, but they poorly executed on it, and made it extremely difficult for app developers to support all of these devices that they have, and they suffer the same thing that BlackBerry suffers today. Too many devices, too many screen resolutions, too many different variables, too many different firmwares. It's impossible for indie developers to support all the different devices and all the different firmwares. It's just impossible. And that's the same problem. That's the problem with BlackBerry and Nokia. They've been in this business too long, you know? The Verizon VCast store, absolutely horrible. The website is a disaster. I uploaded WhiteNoise to it over a year ago, and I recently went back in to try to update it because the app's a year out of date, and I couldn't figure out. I spent an hour looking how to update my app, and I couldn't figure it out, and I'm editing all this stuff, and they want a PowerPoint presentation on my company, and I'm like, why? Why do you want a sales deck? This is so old school. So it's just a nightmare. It was designed horribly. And apparently, I found out on the forums, in order to update your app, you have to go through each of the 50 devices and manually upload the same version to each of them. So then I asked Verizon, look, this is ridiculous. Just give me the delete button. They disabled it. Can you just re-enable the delete button? I want out. I want to tap out. And they wouldn't do it, so it's a nightmare. You'll notice I didn't put BlackBerry in either of these categories, because I'm pained because I have made money on the BlackBerry store. I hate all the different devices, and if you look at the latest versions that everyone's running, over 50% are still on 5 and 6. And those are outdated operating systems, and it's just a nightmare to support that. So will BlackBerry 10, obviously it's the future of BlackBerry. They need to get on QNX. Playbook doesn't have the traction to support it yet. They need to do something drastic. It looks like they're going to die. I don't know. I hope they don't. They're still considered the gold standard of security, but nobody wants them. Everybody wants iPhones and Androids in their IT shops. Okay, so these are the good stores. These are the stores that I'm moving forward with this year. These are the stores that I like. These are the stores that I recommend. Of course, the gold standard is Appstore, but I really like Google Play and I like Amazon. And they make it easy to support both. In addition to that, I think there's going to be traction for the desktops, especially the Windows 8 when it's deployed. So I'm extremely excited about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Windows 8 a little bit later. And I like the Mac App Store. It's clearly not as good as iPhone, iPad, but it's not bad. It's not bad, and it's easy to support. It has the same great interface as the iPhone App Store. So going forward, those are the 5 stores that I am going to focus on. Let's talk a little bit about the new kids on the block. We have the Amazon App Store. Who was in the store before anyone else when it was a beta thing? Anyone? Mark? Disaster, right? Like you had to email people, your description, email, FTP up a binary, like it was just a mess, I hear. And I didn't want, when I talked to Amazon, they wanted WhiteNoise, and I asked them, well, what benefit do you have over the Google Play Store, or the Google Android Store at the time? And there wasn't any. They were only going to support the US. They didn't have any device of their own. And I asked them, well, are you going to create your own device? Because then I might be interested. And they said, well, we can't comment on that. Well, obviously they came out with the Kindle Fire. So now they're a competitor. And it's the first true tablet competitor to the iPad, in my opinion. Sure, you can say your Android tablets are great, but I think this is, I think the Kindle Fire is priced right. I think it has a great store interface. And I absolutely love the developer interface to the store. They got it right. It's just so easy. One thing you should know, if you're going to just blindly submit your Google Play Store app to Amazon Store, Make sure you don't have any links to Google because they will deny your app. You are not allowed to link from your Kindle Fire app to the Google Play Store. They will deny it. Which kind of sucks because now I have to have 2 different builds, you know, of my app, but it's not that big a deal. The other thing that is a little crazy is you don't set the price. Amazon sets the price, right? Every other store, you set the price. With Amazon, you set the list price. You set the price you want to sell it at. But ultimately, it's up to Amazon to pick a price they want to sell at. And the way the terms read is they'll pay you 70% of the sale or 20% of list, whichever is greater. So in my example, WhiteNoise is $1.99. And Amazon actually put it on sale last week. And they started charging 99 cents for it. So if you do the math, you know, you take $1.99 times 20%, which is the list, is 40 cents. And you take the sale price, 99 cents times 70, and 69 cents. So I get 69 cents when they put it on sale. Do you want Amazon setting your price? Yes, it was amazing. They featured it, they put it in the deals of the week, and it drove a ton of downloads. So they can set the price all they want. As long as they're going to promote it like they did, I have no problems with it. But it's something to think about. And I've seen a lot of 99-cent apps on sale for 85 cents. So, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you're talking about $1 and $2 and putting that on sale. But it drives downloads. I want to talk a little bit about Windows 8. You might have noticed my slide deck is a little metro. I've been working for the last 2 or 3 weeks with the Microsoft guys to get WhiteNoise into their store. And from a developer point of view, I'm really excited about Windows 8. From a user perspective, I don't know if it's going to be a success or not. What I do know is I like how they're putting their store front and center. Right when you install Windows 8, you see that Windows Store in the top left corner. That's where you're going to go to get all your Metro apps. And the fact that they've sold 600 million licenses, that means they're a player. This isn't going to be a flop. Well, probably not, when you have that kind of traction. And I love the fact that, and I've always loved the Microsoft tools. They're big into XAML and C#. They support C++, also HTML5, JavaScript. Those are all the things you can use to create Metro 8 apps. And they're going to offer a ton of options, free, paid. You can do trials. You can enable, 7-day trials, and then, you force people to upgrade or disable features. They give you a lot of flexibility on how you want to do it. Microsoft has its own ad API, just like iAd does for Apple, so you can use that. Their payout is interesting, 70% of the first 25,000, 80% of the rest. So if your app's going to make more than 25,000, you're going to get a nice little bonus, I guess, a nice little 10% bonus. One thing I found interesting is they don't want light versions. They don't want to clutter their store with 2 different apps, one that's light and one that's full. They want it all to be in a single app. So, and I've had to rethink a lot of things to support Windows 8. They've really come up with a set of guidelines that might blow your mind because it's so different than anything else. It's probably similar to Windows Phone 7, which I haven't really mentioned here, and it hasn't been that great of a performer for me. But the rumors on the street are that Windows Phone 8 is going to be, they're going to give us a sneak peek June 22nd. I'm going to be curious what they're going to say, because I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a lot of consistency between the 2 platforms. I can tell you now, Windows Phone 7 and Windows 8 has no consistency. I thought I would be able to take my Windows Phone 7 app. Thank you for downloading WhiteNoise. I thought I'd be able to download Windows Phone 7, be able to take that app, and bring it all the way to Windows 8. But Windows 8 doesn't support Silverlight, whereas you had to code with Silverlight on Windows Phone 7. So for a while, I was like, what are you doing, Microsoft? You're telling us to use Silverlight, now you're taking it away. And I asked them that yesterday, and they said, no, we're all about XAML. That's what you use. I'm like, okay, but I programmed to Silverlight. I have to throw all that code out. So I think going forward, it's going to be WinRT. and I think they're going to bring it to both devices. And I think this is going to have a lot of potential. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about mobile marketing. I've presented on this stuff before, so I apologize if you've seen it. I've changed a few things, though. The days of build it and they will come are far over. We all know that. When I first started, there was less than 1,000 apps in the store, and I could just throw anything against the wall and get a ton of downloads. It's no longer the case. So how do you get your app to meet the world? Website, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google+, friends, family, create your newsletters, get on podcasts. These are all things you know, hopefully. I've seen people set their website up as a Twitter page. I can't take that seriously if your app website is Twitter. Have a website, make it look professional. Newsletters, I like MailChimp. I'm using them lately and they seem great. I would try them out. But your first apps, get your friends and families. They will love to download it. They'll love to support you. Me, no more. I've had too many apps. I go into their spam folder now, so they won't help me. Always have a good press strategy. You need to have email contact on your website. I've been fortunate enough to have made the news in a few of my apps, and so having a way for the press to contact you is so important. And always tell them a good story. The last thing they want to hear is your feature list. Just tell them a good story if they ever call. Have that story ready. You know, I've got like 3 stories that are funny with WhiteNoise, like women asking me to put in a hairdryer sound because that's how they sleep to it at night. They turn it on and she burns up 6 a year. Can I please save her hairdryer? Things like that. Silly stories from your customers are great. Save them. Bloggers and app reviewers are definitely your friends. Use those promo codes. If you're a paid app, you get 50 of them per version. Give them out. If anyone asks me for a promo code, I give it to them, you know? I don't care if it's a little website in France and I can't even read what they're writing. I give it to them. I recommend a website, godoats.org, if you are curious where to try to get free reviews of your apps. These are reviews that you don't have to pay for. You probably notice with sites like Engadget, they'll always recommend these apps, and those people are paying big money for those articles. But this is a website that you can go to that they don't charge for app reviews. They want to see a good app, though. So finding your app. How do you find your app? Since most of our apps are lost at sea, we're going to use search. And guess what? SEO works. And iTunes will actually index the app title, the company name, and keywords. You get 100 characters to come up with the best keywords you can. Google Play doesn't have keywords. They actually index the whole description, 4,000 characters. You should use it. App title, company name is pretty standard all the way across. Amazon has a keywords field. And today I was playing around with it and I couldn't find the max amount of keywords. Mark, do you know? I was putting in so many keywords. I was having a good old time. And it didn't stop me. So I'm curious if there's a limit to that or not. But regardless, I recommend you use the tool that everyone should be using, and that's Google AdWords Keyword Tool. That allows you to know what people are searching for in Google. You can't get that information out of iTunes. Wouldn't that be great? But you can get it out of Google. And so today I went and I put in my keywords, WhiteNoise and sleep, and it returned me all these great little words that I may not have thought of. And so it's a really useful tool to help you optimize those keywords. How do you get featured? And nothing does drive downloads like being featured. And of course, I was just featured on the Amazon Appstore because of that sale price, so that was nice. I don't know how they didn't even notify me they put it on sale, but I recently did an update and made it look really good on that Kindle. You know, I did a tablet update for my app to make it look great. And I think that helped. Glowburst was one of my most featured games, probably like 8 or 10 times it's been featured on iTunes. And the important thing there is I use Glowburst as kind of my test bed for new features. Whatever Apple was coming out with, I was there at the beginning. So when the iPad was first released, I had it submitted. It was there before the iPad was even available for purchase. So it was featured, and it shot up right into the #1. It was featured next to Avatar, and I mean, that's just awesome to see your little indie game next to a billion-dollar franchise, only on iTunes. And then when the iPhone 4 came out, I immediately updated it for Retina display. It was ready to go for the Retina display. Game Center was released. It was ready to go. I was there ahead of the curve, and at every point, they featured it. That tells you something. Use their latest stuff. Make their devices look great. Taking that same philosophy to Windows Desktop and their phone, it's all about live tiles. If you hear the Microsoft people talking about their platform, live tiles this, Metro that. We don't want to use static icons. We want the icons to actually convey something useful. Put that in your app if you want to be featured. And so at the end of the day, you want to make the device look and sound great. And if you think about where the iPhone came from, it came from the iPod. And that's a music device. And that's why you have to have music. Every game I've ever had featured had good music in it. So sound is important. It's not all just Retina display graphics. Advertising. Before you advertise and pay good, hard-earned money, make sure your app is great and make sure it's viral enabled, meaning in all of my apps, I have a link to share it with others, to post reviews, to post the app to Facebook, post it to Twitter. It's got to be social. So in that chance, if you do get featured, people will start sharing the app. And you got to make it easier. You don't want it just to be literally word of mouth. You want people to be able to shoot off links to download your app. Only promote free versions. Never try to promote a paid version. I find if you've never advertised, I think AdMob is a great place to start. It's so easy to use. And what's amazing is they just lowered the minimum bid to a penny. I've never seen it that low. You can't get any lower. I say it was free, that's it, a penny. That means you're paying a penny a click. It's unheard of. And it's probably a good time to play around with it, especially at that rate. However, I ran a recent campaign at a penny, and I wasn't getting the fill rates that I needed. So you may have to up that bid to actually get the fill rates that you need. Regardless, even if you think you're a great slogan writer, and that's the fun part for me, I love coming up with slogans, create multiple ones, because you'll be surprised how they all perform differently. You know, I'll write WhiteNoise, you know, sleep better, feel better, whatever. And I think that's great. And it doesn't perform as good as like 3 other completely different texts that I wrote. So it's always create multiple. I say 10 at a minimum. Create 10 different copies of your ad and track them. You have to track it. And I'm not talking clicks. You need to know if people are installing. CPI is the most important thing that you can get out of advertising, the cost per install. Because clicks don't tell you anything. They tell you that you're going to owe some money, but they're not telling you if your ad campaigns are effective. And I find that burst campaigns are the best approach. If you're going to give me $10,000 to spend, I'm going to spend it in 1 day, maybe 2. I'm not going to spread it out over a month. No way. What's that going to do? You're just giving them money and you're not getting any results. So if you're going to spend the money, you're going to have to do it quickly and get that pop. You want it to pop. And hopefully you get that app popped up to the front and it has all those social sharing mechanisms necessary to keep it there. That's the strategy. I did a case study with AdMob on one of my more successful ones. This was a year or 2 ago. I had a conversion rate of 19%, cost per install of 20 cents. That means my advertising was costing me 20 cents to get a registered user launching my app. That is amazing. If you can get 20 cents, you should pay that all day long. I actually got 14 cents this year, and that was on setting my minimum bids lower than 5 cents. This was a 5 cents cost per click. The end result, which was like a 2 or 3 burst campaign, was it pushed my light version to the number 3 in productivity. And at the same time, I was advertising within my light version to promote the full version, and it pushed that to the number 51 spot overall. Remember I told you that technical barrier? I hit it, and I couldn't get over it, but I got to 51, just off a 2-day campaign. After all that, you need to track what people are writing about your app. You need to track your sales. You need to track your application ranks. I recommend App Annie. It's free, supports iOS, Mac, and now Android. Every morning I wake up to 2 emails, one telling me how my Android apps are doing or not doing, and one telling me how my iPhone apps are doing, and including the Mac store. So every morning I wake up and I get disappointed, and that's a shame, but it's better to know than to not know. If you don't trust having a third party get access to your financial data, then you can use a Mac product called AppViz 2. It's great. It's a Mac app. One-time purchase, $49, and it'll actually pretty much do all the same functionality except for send you emails. It doesn't work for Android either. But if you're nervous at showing your financial data or sharing it, and there are rumors that they sell that information, so if that's a concern of yours, check out AppViz. Well, since we have so many people here, I'd be an idiot not to plug my own stuff. So here you go. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope there was some useful information. If there was, I'd love for you to download WhiteNoise as a free version. You can also, I do a podcast, a technology podcast every week. It's called Tech 411. We talk about all things mobile and apps, and I pick a favorite app every week that I like. So feel free to, if you think you've got a great app, I'm more than happy to review it and maybe include it in one of my shows. We have over 10,000 listeners currently. And I have a book endorsed by Steve Wozniak, Tap, Move, Shake. So check that out at my website, toddmoore.com. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter, and that's my email. Thank you so much.